Okay, so I went ahead and took the aftermarket follower out and put the factory one back in, and the same thing happened. It actually got hung up. So what I think it is, my cat. What I think it is it seems that because there are those two little dimples, that H and R, that H and R, for some oddball reason, including, and some people drill them out. I recommend grinding them out. I think one of them I could have ground down a little bit further, and the followers, because it didn't matter, and that's the first time it's ever happened. Of course, it's going to happen on camera, but if they're not at least flush, and I think it's just enough to where it's hanging this up, and even the factory one, if they're not completely flush, obviously that can happen. That's really, really strange. That would happen on camera. It's Murphy's Law. But anyway, it is back together, and it seems to work fine, but there's the risk of it hanging up. So I think what I'm going to do is disassemble it later on, and go ahead and put the Dremel to it. But anyway, that's just a follow-up on the previous session. So this is a new topic, and in this case we are going over dual wielding. So those safeties on. And let me check the magazines there. Put these off to the side. And pop these rounds out. Now, this is the first thing I want to go over when discussing dual wielding principles. Notice I cleared this magazine this way, and I'm clearing this magazine this way. I didn't throw it over to my right hand. Okay, if it's a dual wield, it's a dual wield, meaning you operate the left as you were left-handed, and you operate the right as you were right-handed. So, let's assume, okay, I got both hands full. I've seen people do stuff like, well, in this case, and this kind of goes back to the one-handed argument, what happens if you only have one hand? Well, you can turn these upside down. You can lower your posture, and, this is sort of a thing. Let me clear these just to make sure before I get into screwing around with them. Yeah, they are clear. Hands are sweaty. Gosh darn it. The crane is weak. I think that's a gun oil. Can't get a grip on it. But anyway, one of the things, you can look at doing, they talked about, you can rack it off your shoe, you can rack it off your belt, you can do that. But let's take it from, basic position of, okay, I have two hands, and let's say I'm at the range, and I'm doing this slowly, and I want to do it properly. Okay, so I'm going to lower all of my fingers down past the trigger guard, and I'm going to grab one end like that. And I'm going to grab the other end like that. Okay? And then, you know, hopefully I can get some grip on this, because really I like to use this finger versus flipping it. Like, you know, when you're just first starting out, I recommend using the thumb. You know, just flip it around like you would if you had a hammer. But see, I can't get a grip on it now, so my fingers are too welled up, which is not good. So they're a little greasy. I'm cleaning that shotgun. So that is, you know, you're taking your time. You know, you do it that way. And of course, you can manage the safety the same way. You flip it around like that. You flip it around like that. But really, what I recommend is practicing with your index finger, managing those controls. Because, you know, you go from there to right there. It's almost like having your finger in the guarded position. As you would here, you're not actually going to bring it from, you know, the guarded position to the trigger until that slide locks into place. So, my hands are greasy. And I can't get a grip on it. I just can't. In any case, if all else fails, use your thumb. So usually I use my my index finger, though. That is when it isn't covered in gun oil. So another thing you can do. So we get into, you know, like we talked about last time with the transitions. You know, getting into postures. Okay. Let's say, you know, I'm doing something like this. Well, you know, just some crazy stuff. Whatever, for whatever reason. Well, how would you, you know, I'm one-handed. How do I rack this thing? I didn't use my belt. I didn't use anything. So what did I use? What I used was Hiro no Kama. Okay? My legs out, you know, my feet apart, and my knees bent. I can take that and put pressure on these pistols. And it's this downward pressure that allows me to do that. It doesn't matter what I'm wearing. Be wearing a gi, be wearing whatever. And they're both ready to rock and roll if you can get a grip on them. So, tough little suckers. But always, you know, manage, you know, each side as you would if you were left-handed, you know, as if you were right-handed. You never flip around to where, you know, you go like, you know, boom, 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 and then go, you know, get used to managing it as you would if that was your dominant hand. Whether you're right-handed, whether you're left-handed, whatever. Doesn't matter. So really that's, you know, I've heard a lot of ideas about, you know, how to load these, you know. Okay, so let's go ahead and throw a holster on. Just throw it in my pocket there. I'm going to take the loaded one out, so I don't like screwing around with a lot of guns. Well, in this case, I'm left-handed, okay? And I'm going to draw like this, right? And then I'm going to flip it around. And I'm going to holster like that. Those positions that we talked about? Okay, well, what if it's the right hand? Okay, and I've got an additional magazine here, and I go ahead and I drop this. Boom. Well, what do I do next? Well, see that? And then I'll go into that hero no comma, right? Okay, so let's say I'm standing in hero. I'll just put my knee up here so you can see it. Drop the magazine like that. Slide up. Or you can tilt it that way so it doesn't fall forward. Yeah, because that's what happened there, is I was like that. Tilt it back a little bit. And, you know, really put your fingers underneath like the other time when I was discussing how to rack, you know, without having to put guns on your arms or anything between your legs. So you pull it out. Put it, say, you know, 22.5, 45 degrees off to the side. And bringing your hand down will give you a little bit of catch space underneath to where, you know, that magazine can drop right into your hand. You can slide it into your gun and, you know, let's go ahead and rack it. And you're ready to rock and roll. So, Mark did a video about that. I thought it would be something interesting to go over. But whenever you're going to be reloading or anything like that, let's say you are in a gunfight, which is incredibly rare, unless you're in the military. In either case, you're going to want to seek cover. So using the ground, you know, just, you know, boom, whatever you can get a solid surface against, if you can apply that pressure, then that will give you what you need. So, like I said, this, you know, you don't have to go through all this, and, you know, which that's not a bad idea and everything, but just do that position change, that, you know, Kuji change, and you're good to go. No limberness, no, you know, odd maneuvering or anything about it, just, and, you know, then you grab another one, you know, which, it's going to be upside down when you grab it, so you're going to pull it out like this. So you'd want to have your fingers down below the guard, grab that sucker, pull it out, you know, take a low stance, get it off to an angle, let it fall right in. In this case, you do that. Try to get it at least once. Finger is so crazy. I can't, it just slides right off. And now that thing's all greased up. So in any case, that's how it should be managed, you know, whether it's one-handed, you know, whether you're doing it, you know, like I said, you know, where it's a slow rack, where you feel like you have time to get it done right. Yeah. You're in the Budokan, think about stuff like this. You're in the Genbunkan, think about stuff like this. You're a Toga Ninja, think about stuff like this, period. Because there's always a most efficient way to do something. And it may not at first seem intuitive, you know, maybe because you spent your entire life doing this, you know. And maybe that's something to practice. Maybe try eating with utensils in the opposite direction. just to sort of flip your brain around a little bit. I know it sounds kind of stupid, but some of the ideas I've heard about, how to manage these one-handed or to manage two of them at the same time, some of them had some basic points to make, but there was a lot of inefficiency. And with this argument going on about whether you should carry with around chamber, cycling efficiency, do you trust it? Okay. Well, little things like that, when we're doing our movements, we're trying to be as straightforward and efficient as possible. When we receive, it's not just a receive, it's a strike, right? And then we're looking to go in as efficiently as possible, do our takedown, do our pin, and the fight. Well, you don't want to be, messing around with this or that, or between the legs, or you're off balance. You want to be able to keep those stable postures. So let's say you are cycling and someone comes up. Maybe you don't even have an arm. Maybe you need to drop the gun right then, or just use it to whatever. There are certain principles in ninjutsu that we all know, okay? And as long as you don't violate those, you won't get into trouble. But what's the problem with, putting a gun in between your legs? That's not a good kami. It's just, we don't ever stand like that. What kami is that? Lower posture, wider stance, defensive. That way, even if I don't want to drop it or whatever, I'm ready to go. Same as we talked about with, and it really is like that. It's just like, the sword, where you should go ahead and pull it forward to feel that, and same with pulling it out. And it depends on how you're drawing. I mean, if you're just drawing straight up or drawing straight back, in that case you want to pivot your holster, or you take it this way. But when you put it back in, it should be like, a sword sheath. It should be just like that, because those are the principles we were raised on. We know they work. Well, if they work here, they'll work here. So obviously the shortest video, but and that's, I'm trying to drag it out a little bit to sort of equal the stupidity of the other ones, especially after that hang up, and it figures that would happen on camera. But for all of those, both you two knock it off. Munchkin? Anyway. My cats are hissing at one another. Stop it! Alright. They're both female. Anyway, yeah, Lippy was still just like, but anyway, they're both female. Bitches. Anyway. For people, in martial arts who, generally tend to stay away from firearms, I'm trying to, give that perspective of, how does this apply to the principles that we were raised in? And for people who were raised in firearms, how do they apply to some things that you may not be as familiar with, but you're starting to get into, self-defense, or more advanced martial arts. So I hope that answers a lot of questions. And further, not just that, not just, well, you did it wrong and this is the right way. Well, hopefully, because that's why I'm trying to give you this sort of, underlying primer of what I'm thinking here and how this translates to that and what's the underlying geometry of it all. I hope this gives you some ideas. you know, to you know, maybe come up with something that I haven't thought of. And that's really, you know, what this whole experimental Tetragrammaton thing is all about. You know, is, you know, for the past 5 years now, you know, we've had ping pongs back and forth, discussions about this and that, what works and what doesn't. Well, hopefully this is just another step forward. So, Houston, we still have a problem with the shotgun. I'll have to get the Dremel out with that. I'm not going to mess with it right now. As it stands right now, I'm only keeping 5 rounds in it. And it's definitely not going to get hung up with that many. But that was indeed the problem. So when looking at modifications like that, those are some of the things you're going to need to look at. I think that's about everything that I covered. So, Semper Fi, and have a good one.